Hello, and welcome back to the Be English podcast. I am your host, John Miller.
And I'm Emily Carter. It is so good to be here with you today.
If you are new here, welcome to our community. The Be English podcast is the place where we make learning English simple, fun, and relaxing.
That's right, John. We believe that learning a language should not be stressful. You don't need to memorize thick textbooks to speak well. Our goal is to help you build confidence step by step.
Exactly. And speaking of textbooks, today we have a very special topic. I think many of our listeners will love this one. Today, we are talking about how to learn English without being good at grammar.
Ooh, I love this topic. I know so many students who get stuck because they're afraid of making grammar mistakes. They think, if I don't know the past perfect continuous tense, I can't speak.
It is a very common fear, but the truth is you can communicate very effectively without knowing every single rule. In fact, focusing too much on grammar can sometimes slow you down.
So, in this episode, we are going to share some practical tips on how to improve your English naturally. We want you to speak freely, not perfectly.
So, grab a cup of coffee or tea, get comfortable, and let's get started.
Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Let's dive in.
So, let's talk about the first big secret. If you want to speak English without thinking about grammar rules constantly, you need to change how you consume the language.
Right. Think about how children learn their first language. When a baby is born, do the parents give the baby a grammar book? Do they say, okay, before you say mama, you need to understand the subject-verb agreement?
Definitely not. That would be ridiculous. Babies just listen. They listen to their parents, their siblings, and the cartoons on TV. They absorb the language through context.
Exactly. We call this immersion. For adult learners, this means you need to surround yourself with English. But here is the trick. Focus on the story, not the sentences.
That is a great point, Emily. For example, I love watching movies. When I watch a movie, I don't analyze the sentence structures. I just want to know what is happening to the hero.
Me too. Let's say you were watching a cooking show. The chef says, I'm going to whisk the eggs. You see him moving his hand fast with a tool in a bowl. You might not know the word whisk, and you might not know the grammar tense he used, but you understand the action.
You connect the sound whisk with the picture of mixing eggs. That is learning through context. You didn't need a rule to tell you that whisk is a verb. You just saw it.
So our first tip is to listen and read for pleasure. Don't stop to look up every word. Don't try to analyze why a sentence is constructed that way. Just enjoy the content.
You can do this with podcasts, like this one, or with songs, YouTube videos, or simple books. If you listen enough, your brain starts to recognize patterns.
Patterns are so important. After hearing, I went to the store 100 times in movies, it just sounds right. If you hear, I go to the store yesterday, your brain will feel like something is wrong, even if you don't know the rule for the past tense.
It's like music. If someone plays a wrong note on a piano, you hear it immediately. You don't need to be a music teacher to know it sounds bad. It's the same with language.
So trust your ears. The more you listen, the better your grammar intuition becomes. You will start speaking correctly because it sounds right, not because you memorized a rule.
Moving on to our next point. This is something that really changed how I learned languages personally. It is the idea of learning chunks instead of individual words.
Oh, I love chunks. Can you explain what a chunk is for our listeners, John?
Sure. A chunk is a group of words that always go together. It's like a set phrase. Many learners try to build sentences like they're building a house with Lego bricks. They take one word, then find a grammar rule to connect it to the next word, and so on.
That sounds exhausting. It takes too much time. By the time you build the sentence in your head, the conversation is over.
Exactly. Instead, you should memorize whole phrases. For example, take the phrase, "How is it going?"
That is a very common greeting. How is it going?
Right. If you analyze the grammar, it is actually a bit complex. It's a question, present continuous tense, but you don't need to analyze it. You just need to know that "how is it going" means, "Hello, are you okay?"
You treat it as one single item. So when you see your friend, you don't think subject, verb, auxiliary. You just say, how's it going?
Another great example is ordering food. This is a very stressful situation for many learners. They worry about saying, "I want coffee" versus "I would like a coffee."
A great chunk to learn is, can I get a, or I'll have the.
Yes, if you memorize "can I get a," you can use it everywhere. Can I get a coffee? Can I get a ticket? Can I get a menu? You don't have to worry about the grammar of the request. You just fill in the blank.
It makes speaking so much faster. It makes you sound more fluent, too. Native speakers use chunks all the time. We say, long time no see. Grammatically, that is a terrible sentence. There's no verb.
That's true. "Long time no see" breaks all the rules, but it's a perfect chunk. Everyone uses it.
So stop memorizing lists of isolated words. Start collecting phrases. Write them down in your notebook.
And practice saying them out loud. When you have a collection of these phrases, you will feel much more prepared for real conversations. You won't be translating from your native language. You'll be speaking English directly. Now, let's discuss the final and perhaps most important aspect. This is about your mindset. We need to talk about the fear of being wrong.
This is a huge barrier. I have students who stay silent because they're terrified of using the wrong preposition. They think, is it in the bus or on the bus? So they say nothing.
That is sad, because the goal of language is connection, not perfection. When you speak to someone, you want to share an idea or a feeling. You're not taking a test.
Imagine you're a tourist in London. You're lost. You need to find the train station. If you run up to someone and say, train station, where? Do you think they will help you?
Of course they will. They'll point you in the right direction. They won't say, "Excuse me, you forgot the verb is. I cannot help you."
Exactly. The message was clear. Train station, where? Works. It is not perfect grammar, but it's perfect communication.
Listeners, please remember this. Native speakers make mistakes too. In casual conversation, we cut words, we change tenses, and we use slang.
We do, and we are very forgiving when talking to learners. We appreciate that you are trying to speak our language. We're focusing on your meaning, not your grammar errors.
So, how can you practice this? Try to explain things simply. If you don't know the complex word or the correct grammar structure, use simple words to describe it.
We call this circumlocution, or talking around the word. For example, if you forget the word for umbrella, you can say, the thing you hold over your head when it rains.
That is brilliant. The thing for rain. Everyone will understand you. You didn't need the complex grammar, you just needed to describe the image in your head.
Confidence comes from doing, not from studying. The more you speak, even with mistakes, the more comfortable you will feel. Every time you speak and someone understands you, it's a victory.
So be kind to yourself. Don't let the fear of grammar stop you from making friends and exploring the world.
We've covered some really interesting points today. Let's quickly summarize the main ideas for our listeners.
First, we talked about immersion. Listen to English as much as possible. Movies, podcasts, music, and focus on the meaning, not the rules. Let your brain find the patterns naturally.
Second, we discussed chunks. Don't build sentences word by word. Learn useful phrases like can I get a or how's it going to speak faster and more naturally.
And finally, focus on communication, not perfection. Don't be afraid of mistakes. If people understand your message, you're speaking successfully. Before we go, let's look at a couple of vocabulary words we used today. Emily, what is a key word from this episode?
One important word is context. Context means the situation or information surrounding a word that helps you understand its meaning, like seeing the chef with the eggs helped you understand the word whisk.
Great word. Another one is chunk. In language learning, a chunk is a group of words that are habitually used together. It helps you speak more fluently.
And lastly, immersion. This means surrounding yourself completely with the language, like being in a swimming pool of English.
I hope these tips help you feel more relaxed about your English journey. You don't need to be a grammar expert to be a great communicator.
We'd love to hear from you. Do you have a favorite English phrase or chunk that you use often? Let us know in the comments section.
Yes, please share. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the Be English podcast and share it with a friend who's learning English. It really helps us grow.
Thank you so much for listening. Keep practicing, keep listening, and don't be afraid to speak up.
Until next time, I'm John.
And I'm Emily. See you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.